unos pasos de la destitución. El Congreso de Brasil ya ha dado el primero de ellos al pronunciarse a favor de iniciar el procedimiento de destitución de la presidenta Dilma Rousseff con 367 votos a favor y 137 en contra. Si el Senado toma la misma decisión que la Cámara Baja, se suspenderá el mandato de Dilma Rousseff durante 180 días, mientras el Congreso examina el caso. Durante este periodo, el país será gobernado por el vicepresidente Michel Temer, a quien la presidenta atribuye la organización del proceso contra ella.
Es algo insólito y chocante, pero sobre todo es espantoso que un vicepresidente en el ejercicio de su mandato conspire abiertamente contra el presidente. En ninguna democracia del mundo se respetaría a alguien que actuara de este modo.
Se acusa a la presidenta de haber realizado presuntamente maniobras fiscales irregulares para ajustar las cuentas de su gobierno. Pero los diputados que votaron a favor de la destitución están lejos de ser impecables en el ejercicio de sus funciones públicas. Según Transparencia Brasil, el 53% de los integrantes de la Cámara de Diputados están siendo investigados. Entre quienes no están libres de culpa se cuentan los que encabezan el proceso político contra Dilma Rousseff. El propio Eduardo Cunha, presidente de la Cámara de Diputados, está siendo investigado por el Tribunal Supremo por recibir sobornos de empresarios en el caso Petrobras. Le sigue el vicepresidente Michel Temer, investigado por su participación en una operación ilegal de compra de etanol.
Algunos lo han calificado como un circo político, otros como un golpe de Estado. Sin fundamento, ilegal, un pretexto para remover del poder una presidenta que ha perdido la popularidad. ¿Quiénes están detrás de estas iniciativas para destituir a Dilma Rousseff y cuáles son sus verdaderos objetivos?
Hay partidos políticos, hay medios de comunicación, pero también factores externos. Es un precedente grave el que abre la situación política en Brasil porque la presidenta Dilma llega al gobierno nuevamente después de unas elecciones democráticas. Antecedentes hay y son todos antecedentes que demuestran que la derecha latinoamericana está involucrada en estos eventos. El intento de golpe en Ecuador en el año 2010, el intento de golpe en Bolivia en el año 2008, el golpe en Paraguay en el año 2012, el golpe en Honduras a Manuel Zelaya en el 2009. En todos estos eventos está la derecha latinoamericana involucrada y este es un caso más de eso, pero con la complejidad y la gravedad de que es en el país más grande de América Latina en el Caribe y que puede provocar asimismo inestabilidad en los demás países.
Cuban Revolution in 1959, a priority for the United States was to stop left-wing governments from coming into existence, either socialist governments or far-left governments, inspired by the example of what happened in Cuba. And you had, as a consequence, a range of really severe military dictatorships imposed on different peoples throughout the continent, and all of those dictatorships had in their origin the Pentagon. And the Brazilian people and the other people in Latin America have, through the electoral process, established left or left-leaning governments, and they've blocked together and they've created an anti-hegemonic bloc. What the United States wants to do is break up regional cooperation where those countries could exercise sovereignty and put them all again under the dictate of the IMF or Washington or neoliberal policies which would be run by Wall Street. And that's why the opposition to Dilma is in Washington right now, meeting with the Republican Party and with Wall Street bankers, preparing for a post-Workers' Party government, which would take Brazil, not only lose its sovereignty, but probably take Brazil out of BRICS. BRICS was the promise of a possible return of something that would balance the unipolar power of the United States and NATO and the IMF. The U.S. definitely wants to destroy BRICS.
United States have been professing to be fighting tax evasion all over the world, but at the same time they've opened up some tax havens in their own country. See, the states of Delaware, Nevada, Wyoming, and South Dakota are the new Switzerlands of this world. They are tax havens that guarantee people a banking secrecy which surpasses that of Switzerland and Luxembourg. And what they're doing right now is they're blackmailing people all over the world because nobody knows if he will end up in that list. And people, the only way that people can avoid ending up in that list is putting their money into the new tax havens in America. And the most important thing is the things that are not reported, because they're holding back a lot of information. So that way they can blackmail people all over the world who will be afraid that their name might show up there sometime. And I think the whole thing should be seen in a wider context, because what is the American government doing? It's pursuing a policy of destabilization all over the world. And this also serves this purpose of destabilization. The US is preparing for a super big financial crisis, and they want all that money in their own vaults and not in the vaults of other countries.
Now, if you look what happens when a multinational corporation evades taxes, it deprives that country of the resources it needs to carry out its mission, to take care of its people, to provide for defense, to provide for all the benefits that these corporations profit from, and it weakens their position. Then if you cross that over and you look at what's going on globally with these trade organizations, the TTIP being passed, that weakens national sovereignty further. What we're seeing here is a move by the globalists to essentially dissolve the sovereign nations of the world as we see them today, or at least weaken them so much that corporate governance rules over sovereign governance of free people around the planet. The IMF needs to go away. It needs to be dissolved. It serves no useful purpose. The IMF has been a tool to enslave countries and burden them with debt for decades. If you're going to have a multinational corporation doing business within your sovereign territory, you better make them play by your rules and not allow them to pilfer taxes and to hide them in havens. The sovereign governments of the world still have the power to extract their pound of flesh from the multinational corporations, which is why the multinational corporations are pushing so hard for the TTIP trade deal, which is really a disaster for all free humans on this planet.
The global economy still faces serious challenges, and we both know just how important trade deals are in driving global growth. So Barack and I remain among the most determined to achieve our vision of a US-EU trade deal. And we're working hard to push this forward because it would add billions to our economies and set the standards for the rest of the world to follow.
What actually is the truth, if you look at the official statements, at least 1 million jobs are going to go directly as a result of TTIP. And that's 325,000 are going to go in the USA. But in the European Union, including Britain, the official figures say there is going to be 680,000 jobs lost at a minimum. And that does not mean more prosperity for us. It means more profits for the big corporations and disaster for ordinary working people who are already feeling the squeeze. Well, we know that the logic of TTIP is about trying to remove barriers to trade. And what they've said to us explicitly is that those barriers are the regulations, the rules, the standards that business would much prefer not to have to apply. And that is exactly environmental standards, food safety standards, public health standards. Wherever business can see that it would actually be able to make a bigger profit by not having to comply with these regulations, that's where they're trying to get rid of them in TTIP. And we said to the UK government, well, is there a possibility of raising standards in TTIP, or is it always downwards? And they came back to us quite explicitly and they said, no, it is only about lowering standards. There will be no raising of standards in TTIP.
The crux of the problem is that we're at a very dangerous crossroads in terms of strategic geopolitical relations and, of course, warfare. What is happening in recent years is a breakdown of communication, East-West communication. It's coupled with what we might describe as the globalization of NATO. It has a military agenda, which is one of conquest. The United States and its allies, and that includes NATO, are covertly supporting terrorist organizations. And then Hillary Clinton says nuclear weapons are on the table. So that when we have that kind of discourse where people in very high levels of government are making statements that actually point towards a World War III scenario, we are at a very dangerous crossroads, and World War III is not an option, and the United States will not win World War III. Nobody will win World War III.